That is the great shock of this event, that you know, for 8 years there was a kind of optimism in the air, and then it was revealed that all that time these dark forces had been building up. You know, and that's why, you know, when I first started writing this book, it hadn't occurred to me that it would be so precisely anchored from the inauguration of Obama to Trump.
Do you think that the assumption of liberal values now is over?
And I still think that this is, I think it's a reversible thing. You know, I mean, I think the majorities that elected him were tiny. I mean, he lost the popular vote anyway. But I think, well, actually what the novel is really saying is that the forces that created him are there anyway, whether he's there or not. You know, this incredibly divided, broken country.
So did Obama sit on top of something that was broken without recognizing it? Did he help to heal it? Did he make it worse?
I think in a funny way, his presence energized the extreme right as nothing else ever had. And when we thought things were going to get better, they actually got worse. I mean, I'm actually quite an admirer of Obama, not knocking him, but I'm just saying that that's what seems to have happened. And so, you know, what I was trying to do was do something which, in a way, you're told not to do as a novelist, which is to write up against the present moment, to try and write a novel which is about the exact moment in which the novel is being written. You know, because you're always taught you need distance and perspective, and so on. And if you do it right, then you capture the moment for all time, hopefully. If you do it wrong, then your novel becomes unimportant, like yesterday's papers, you know. But I mean, you have to tell me if I did it right or wrong. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have this social panoramic novel, which was about, not just about Trump, but about all the things that had been eating at people in this last 8 years. So it had to be, as I was writing it, it had to be reactive to events, you know. So there were things like issues of like identity politics, of gender difficulties, so on, that was so much on people's minds. I had to find ways to incorporate those in the novel.
I want to ask you about that, because the novel asks questions about how we work out our own identity, and you say our identities are unclear. Maybe it's better they remain that way, that the self goes on being a jumble and a mess.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, one of the things that the novel has, as a form, has always known is that human beings are many things at once. You know, they're complicated and contradictory and multifarious, and that's what makes us rich characters.
So when Dee, the youngest son, is exasperated with being told to find out whether he's transsexual, transgender, whether what he is that your voice with this argument? Well,
I mean, I do think there's an argument which says just leave him alone. Don't try and force him this way or that way. And his tragedy is that he's being encouraged to choose and not able to do so.
And is your sense on the gender issue that we're obsessing too much about that now?
Well, I think certainly at the youngest level. I think the fact that this is sometimes being introduced into the lives of very small children, you know, I think that worries me. In the case of the novel, the character is very conflicted and tormented.
Where do you think this will end up? Do you think this will continue? Do you think we will see more transitioning?
Well, young people are very obsessed with it, you know, and we have to see what they make of it. You know, this whole question of pronouns, you know, what you call yourself, you don't, and he and she are no longer sufficient. I mean, I just wanted to dive into it and try and get a grip of it and present it, you know, instead of judging it.
Do you think of it as a fad? Do you think it's something that's going to pass?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's a change, that made it interesting to me. If there's something as significant as that, there's actually a shift in how people look at questions of gender identity. You know, that's interesting.
Where would you take this question of identity vis-a-vis the British right now and Brexit?
Well, I think, you know, the point is that it's a kind of global obsession right now, identity. You know, and in America, when people talk about it, they're mostly talking about race and gender. You know, and here it seems as if there's been some sort of nostalgic image of English identity, an England that maybe never really existed when there weren't any foreigners around, and everybody wore straw boaters and went around in punts. Somehow this myth of England has been used, you know, to propagate the idea of separation from Europe. In India, it's much more, identity is much more about religious identity. It's much more about Hindu-Muslim issues. So here's this word that seems to span the world, would mean different things in different places.
But do you think that when we have Brexited, then that will result in a better understanding of our identity? Do you think that will firm things up?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm very gloomy about the prospects, I have to say. But I mean, I may well be wrong, but I don't see how this is going to come out well.
You write about truth in storytelling as well, and you raise the question is, can I lie better than the truth? What role do you think fiction plays in an age of fake news?
Well, I've been thinking about that a lot. It's one of the reasons why, writing this novel, I really stepped away from so-called magic realism, from high fantasy, from surrealism. Because I thought in a moment when there's so much untruth and falsification and fictionalizing going on anyway, maybe don't do that. Because I think actually one of the things that the novel as a form is really good at is establishing between the writer and the reader an agreement about the nature of the truth. You read a book that you love and you think, yes, this is how the world is. This is how things are. This is how we are as people.
So you did that because you think we're missing that now in normal dialogue.
I think the breakdown, people's breakdown of trust in journalism, in the idea of facts and reality, is a very dangerous thing. And I think one of the reasons there may be for writing novels in a time such as this is that it's a place in which writers and readers can begin to agree once more on the nature of the truth.
Do you really think that experts are not particularly trusted anymore?
Well, I think it's weird that, I mean, the idea that the elite now has to do with education rather than wealth. So you have a government in America with more billionaires in it than in the history of America, calling college professors and journalists and novelists the elite. We're not the people with the beachfront properties in the Bahamas. And the young man who narrates the novel, the American narrator who watches the arrival of the Goldens, is genuinely, I think, anguished about his country. And I think during the novel, there's a number of riffs he goes on about the agony of America.
Before you go, let me just ask you about Harvey Weinstein. You were talking about him. You know him. It is no secret of his behaviour in Hollywood.
I mean, there have been rumours for as long as I can remember. And he's more or less owned up to it.
What is your sense then of why Hollywood, so many people turned a blind eye to this for so long?
I don't know. I mean, this is not new in Hollywood. That power and sex have always been closely linked together.
And do you think when we now raise it and when we talk of it in terms of shock, that is the new thing? Well,
maybe people are just beginning to be more courageous, at speaking out, I think, and if so, that's a good thing.
What was the thing you said, the cowardly times? Do you think we live in cowardly times?
I think we do. I think this is not an age of heroes.
Salman Rushdie, thank you.